Hello, how are you, Hope?
I am good. How are you, Paulette?
I'm good. I'm good. I just hit live, so I
Mhm.
believe we are now live here on Facebook as well as StreamYard. I'm
Yes,
glad to be here tonight. Thank you so much for joining me.
I am glad to be here as well.
Perfect. So let me give a little background just to what this show is. It's Bud Talk with Paulette Simone, and I'm your host, Paulette Simone. I am a licensed clinical social worker as well as a cannabis health therapist. And that just means that I love the cannabis plant and I research it and learn about it so that I can help other people use it as a method to help their ailments and different ways to treat with cannabis. So with this show, what I've decided to do is bring my love of cannabis to my audience, to people out there who, whether you know about cannabis or you've used it, you've heard about it, I like to bring my information, what I've learned, to an audience to give people a better understanding of the plant. And
Mhm.
so tonight's episode of Bud Talk with Paulette Simone is focused on the business of bud. So in other episodes, I've talked about medical cannabis 101. We talked about edibles. But tonight, I really want to get down to talk about what it is and how we can get into the industry of bud. How do we break into cannabis? The industry. So tonight I have a very special guest with me, Hope Wiseman. She is the owner of Mary and Main Dispensary in Prince George's County. She's decided to join us tonight to give us some insight on the business of bud. So again, thank you, Hope. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Paulette, for having me.
Absolutely. So I will be asking the audience if they'd like to ask questions, but for now, it's just me and you.
Okay.
So I love what you've done, but please first tell the audience what brought you to the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
Where did you start?
Yeah. So, okay, it started for me in 2014. If you know about the Maryland Medical Cannabis Program, you know that that's the year that the bill that created the program was passed. So, for me, where I was in my life, I had just graduated from Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. I was an economics major and I was working full time at an investment bank in Georgia. I had spent all my summers before that interning at banks on Wall Street, JP Morgan, and I did a short stint at Goldman Sachs as well. I definitely thought I was going to work my way up a ladder at a bank and maybe one day move over to like a C suite at one of the companies that I probably covered at the bank.
Right.
And that was my plan.
Yeah.
Uh, but I definitely was raised with an entrepreneurial spirit. My mother is a dentist and owns her own practice as well as a real estate investor. And I mean, she literally opened her dental practice the year I was born. There are pictures of me in cribs while my mom is like working on teeth.
Wow.
I've been right behind her and following every step of her journey as she's been building. So I've definitely had that entrepreneurial bug. My grandmother is a real estate investor as well.
Mm.
So I was raised by women who were forward thinking, free thinking, definitely with an entrepreneurial spirit. So although I had my corporate plan, I always in the back of my head was like, what's my little side hustle going to be?
Right.
Little did I know it wasn't going to be a side hustle. It was going to take over and become my whole life.
Yes.
Um, but in 2014, like I said, I was working at a bank. But that's the year that I started to notice, at least, cannabis becoming really mainstream. So
Mm.
that's the year that like I started seeing cannabis on the cover of Forbes and Time magazine, and Dr. Gupta was doing documentaries
That's right.
on it on CNBC, and it's just like, I mean, you're seeing it everywhere. Mad Money is doing conversations around cannabis. There's just everywhere I was seeing it from the
Wow.
financial point of view and in pop culture, and I realized, okay, this is going to be, we already know how big the cannabis market is because there's an illicit market that has been quantified. We know it's worth trillions of dollars, right? So we already knew that. And I thought that was interesting to look at a market that way. I'm like, how many new industries can you already quantify what the market share is going to be? What the
Right.
market size is going to be. I was like, not that many, you really can't do that a lot of the times. So I was impressed by that because I'm like, all right, we already know this could grow into the trillions. Yeah, I don't need no analysis to tell me that. I know how many people smoke weed.
Right.
Um, and then I'm like, then there's this whole other aspect of like medicinal users that are truly using it for medicinal purposes that we haven't even really tapped into because there's no research because it's federally illegal. So I'm like, I saw that and I go, you know, this might be the only opportunity for me to get into an industry that will be this large on a ground floor level. I also realized that this industry will likely become a lot like the airline industry or the phone industry, and it will consolidate. So I realized I had to be one of the early players if I wanted to even get in. And then if I wanted to be able to survive and become one of these big adopters or be able to be acquired by one of these big people and get a golden parachute one day, I was like, you got to start today.
Yeah.
And it was scary for me. I was 22, straight out of school. I'm like, how am I going to compete? Because I already saw the writing on the wall. I'm like, oh, it's about to be some heavy hitters getting into this industry. It doesn't matter what that people thought that it was, bad or anything. Look, especially, I don't know what I can say and can't say on here. So tell me if you're like, no, don't say that. But these white boys, they're not playing.
Yeah.
They're not playing. I already knew they were coming hard. I was seeing the people that were, doing well. I mean, Colorado probably has like a Black population of nothing. So I can understand why there wasn't a lot of participation there. But you're seeing what's going on in California. And there's a huge Hispanic and Mexican population out here or out there in Cali. And that's, you're not seeing that reflected in the ownership. So by the time like 2014, there were a few East Coast states considering cannabis. You're seeing some states in the Midwest legalize. Illinois created a program around a few years before that. So all that being said, I saw that, this my opportunity to get in was at the ground floor level. And I looked at the two states that I had ties in at the time, Georgia and Maryland. Georgia had nothing going on at the time. And Maryland had just created a whole program. I read the bill. I realized, okay, they're going to license companies in a year. I went to my mother and I said, Mom, look, this is the opportunity. We talked about building wealth for our family, building something that it could create true legacy and generational wealth that we can pass down. And I was like, well, this is it. This is it. This is how we start. And then, we can parlay into traditional sources of building like real estate and estate planning and just, trust and things like that. We can pivot to those things later. But I was like, cannabis is the vehicle.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I don't even think we understood. We were strictly looking at it from like an economic standpoint in the beginning. Then when I really dove into it, I'm like, wow, like cannabis is really saving people's lives, and I'm like, I was thinking of it definitely more recreationally at first because that was my only experience. But when we started doing our real research, I mean, it almost becomes, how can you not support this when you really understand how much better of a quality of life it gives some people and how it literally saves some people's lives.
Absolutely.
And then the third component that I was like, oh, I'll give up everything to work in this industry and to build in this industry was when I really understood the history of prohibition, why it came about, and who it affected the most. And, when I think about all the times that, I've even had interactions with law enforcement because of cannabis before. And I think about people that I know that have had their lives very severely impacted over interactions with cannabis. And then I think about some of my Caucasian counterparts that I'm like, y'all be riding around with 10 pounds in your car and doing all types of stuff. And I've never heard you say no one has ever said anything to you about cannabis. And I think about the disparities there, kind of made me a little angry. And when I really thought about how we've almost fueled mass incarceration with, it's definitely multiple drugs, not just cannabis, but, cannabis is like the lowest hanging fruit. They know at the end of the day, they can always say that a Black man was probably smoking, let me search your car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think once I understood all those things, I was like, this is the industry for me. I felt like a burning passion to pursue it.
Yeah, man. So thank you for just giving us all that right at the outset, because
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to know. And I think a lot of people don't understand in terms of you don't have to come into it just from one angle. You know, you said it was the economics. You saw it for the economic, the wealth, the growth, and you said that's what you wanted to see in yourself is growth in that way, and you attacked it that way. And then it came back to the how does it really help in seeing all how it matters. So that's when I heard your story. When I heard that, I was like, I want to talk to her, because you know a lot of people are how do I say, shy about the fact that it's the economics and how
Yeah.
much this industry, you know, the wealth of this industry, and they're not sure about how they can get in, and they're not sure like if they could even make an impact. And so
Yeah.
you decided right out of Spelman, which HBCU proud, there we go.
Yes.
Love that.
Yes.
I'm a Morganite. So there you go.
Okay.
Yep,
Yes.
I'm a Morganite. So I love that you got that how do I say, like strive
Yeah.
at Spelman, and you decided when you left there, this is what you wanted to do. Yeah.
hmm
So
Yeah.
you came to Maryland. You decided to not to do it in Atlanta, but to
Mhm.
come to Maryland. Talk to me about the process. Like, how did you go about getting a license? Because you run a very well-known dispensary that's doing pretty good, and we're going to give people information so that they can come visit you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I want to know from the inception. You know, people want to know, how do you even get into the industry? How did you get into
Definitely. So remember, I was talking about the bill that was created. That's everybody's first line of of action.
Yeah.
So we teared apart that bill so that we could understand the framework of what Maryland was proposing for an industry. And every single state has completely different laws. So whatever you think,
That's key.
you might have your idea of like California. A lot of people like, oh yeah, I went to Cali and I got a medical card and I just walked into the dispensary. It's not like that in Maryland.
Right.
Um, you have to be a Maryland resident to get a medical card, and you have to go through the state system and then go to a provider, and then you can come to a dispensary. And then in some states, they made it where you had to register with one dispensary. You could only go to that one. So all those things matter. But as far as us, we pulled apart the bill. We recognized the dates, because oftentimes in these bills, they'll say, okay, the state must license companies by this day. So
Mm.
we kind of figured that out. Also, the bill laid out the framework for
Well, I
what
had the
the
corporate plan. I always in the back of my head.
hold on.
Sorry about
No, it's okay.
that.
um, it laid out the framework for what the actual application would look like for these
Okay.
licenses. It also told us how many licenses they would be giving out, which was 102 dispensaries by a senatorial district. So they gave out 2 licenses per district, and then they gave any business that were to win a cultivation license the opportunity to also acquire or to have a dispensary on site.
Mm.
So that's why there are more than, I think there would have only been 96 dispensaries licensed if they had only given them to the people in the senatorial districts. But there were 102 dispensaries licensed in 2000 and when did they come out? 2015 they
215.
were, or 2016, I'm sorry, 2016 they were awarded. 2015 was when they were due, the applications. It took
Mhm.
a year for that process. But
Mm.
let me go back and tell you in order,
Yeah.
because I'm like skipping over things. But yeah,
Okay.
so we read the bill. That was 2014. That's when the bill was passed. I don't remember when exactly it was passed, but legislative session ends in April every year. So it was passed somewhere between April and June. That's when the governor will sign bills into law. We spent the rest of 2014 studying the bill, understanding what was to come, and also starting to prepare an application even before the physical application was released. Like I said, the bill
Wow.
outlined the entire program and how it would be regulated, as well as the parts that had to be in an application. So we knew a business plan was coming. We
Yeah.
knew a real estate had to be secured. We
Yeah.
knew we would need a site plan. We knew all these things even
Yeah.
before the application came out. So we began working on it and putting together our strategy and our team, introducing ourselves to legislators.
Hmm.
Who had the opportunity they had some influence. We started talking to county executives in different counties we were looking at, so that we could understand, do you guys even want cannabis here? Should we really be
Right.
pursuing your county? Because if not, then we're gonna go somewhere where we want it.
Right.
And we didn't really know if we would need letters of support in our application or not. So we're like, look, we need to go places where people want us here.
Yes.
And also, I'm like, let's be one of the first people they talk to, so that they remember us, and they can learn to get to know us and like us. And that's what we spent
Mhm.
all of 2014 doing. Then the application was released in it was about, I think it was Q3 of 2015. And at that point, you had 30 days to turn it back in.
Wow.
So if you hadn't been preparing before, it was virtually impossible for you to be competitive. Everybody who was competitive in the first process knew about it and had been preparing about it for months before, maybe even a year.
So here's my question, just to push a pin in that. How did you know to be prepared? Who gave you the insight to know this was coming down the pike? Is that information readily available? How did you know?
So for me, I mean, no one really told me, if I'm being honest. Nobody told me. When I decided I wanted to get in the industry, this was my method of research. I looked up Georgia laws. I realized nothing was going on. Looked up Maryland laws. I was like, ooh, what's this bill? How long is
Right.
it? 300 pages? Oh my God. Print that
Mm.
out and let me try and scan through. Okay, finally, on page 200, I've gotten to, oh, so you have to license 196 companies or something by December
Mhm.
2015. I'm like, that's
Mhm.
not fair. I'm like,
Yes.
so that means, I'm like, okay, application processes. How long they take? Let me go look up another state that already did this, Illinois. Okay, so their application came out and it was due in 30 days. I'm like, 30 days? How you get all this stuff together in 30 days? Then I start reading the bill more. I'm reading the bill and I'm like, okay, it's telling me all the stuff that's going to be in the application in the bill.
Ah.
So I'm
Okay.
like, okay, I'm like, mom, come on, we got to secure a location. We're going to have a whole site plan done,
Right.
and drawings and all this stuff. We're going to need some subject matter experts, because we don't know nothing about, how to do X, Y,
Cannabis
and Z.
and right, right.
Mhm. So that's what we just started doing, all of that stuff. We spent a lot of money. So we
Mm.
probably spent 150 to like $200,000
At
just
the
in
Just in the
the pre.
application.
Yep, to put the
Just
application,
to put the application in.
just to put it together, and that's
Wow.
completely at-risk capital. So, like, if we had
'Cause you don't.
lost,
Mhm.
nobody was giving us that money back.
Right.
Because that was, like, for consultants, legal,
Yeah.
traveling to other states to see people, so I totally get that not a lot of people can do that. We literally went balls to the wall, like, that was, like, almost all we had. We had a little bit more money saved up for after we won. And that's why we ended up getting a third partner, because we were like, financially, we can't do this.
Right.
Um, we were comfortable doing it at the time, just because, for me, being so young and no family, no real responsibilities, I was like, look, I can afford to fall flat on my face because I can
Right.
rebuild.
Right.
I have a degree. I'm smart. I was like, I can always get a job. Even today, I'm like, F it, I could get a job anywhere if I had to. But I also
Right.
know, now I feel comfortable. I could build any business in any industry. I don't care. Like, I know I can do that at this point. But yeah, back then, even, I was like, Mom, let's just go for it. And my mom
Yeah.
had already, she built her dental practice and her real estate up. We were going through a lot of family changes. My parents were getting divorced that same year.
Mm.
Um, then we found out my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh
It was a
boy.
lot. It was a
Wow.
lot at one
Wow.
time. I
At
mean,
one
but
time.
we persevered. Yeah, it was a lot
Mm.
for one, about 2016 to like 2018. Those were hard years for my family.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I mean, we had already invested so much time, money, and effort in
Yes.
pursuing this industry. But it's all a testament too to the faith that my family had in me. My mom and my dad, my brother,
Yeah.
um, my now store manager, Dexter Parker, who's like a family member to me. I've known him since I was a child, and he's been like an
Right.
uncle to me my whole life. And
It's a
even Dr. Bryant,
family
yeah,
business.
it's
Yes.
really a family business. And
That's right.
everybody rallied behind me and just lifted me up and put me on their shoulders.
Got it.
So, I mean,
Got it.
it was that type of support is like rare.
Yeah.
I'm very aware. I'm aware. Like I'm not, I'm not one of those people that's
Yeah.
like I made it out the mud. I'm like, I mean, we
No,
all made it
you
out the mud. We were all
technically
crawling
you were
together.
lifted. Right.
Yeah, I was
Right.
lifted out of that with
Yeah.
my mom and Dexter and everyone still, with their feet dug deep in that mud, making sure I'm
Right.
staying lifted up.
Right.
Even today, right now, they ran our store all day.
Right.
I'm in California at this time fielding other opportunities, and
Got it.
they're doing that. So like I'm super blessed in that, but I understand that part of my blessing is so that I could teach other people and
That's
also provide resources to
mhm.
help them avoid some of the mistakes that we went through, and just to give people a chance, because I know
That's
a lot
right.
of people don't have an Octavia Wiseman on their team like I had,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
a Dr. Bryant with the money to help us get to the next stage. So
That's right. But what I heard, and I hope our audience is hearing, is that it wasn't just you.
no.
You have a team.
Mhm.
And regardless of the fact that you were doing one part, there was other people also filling up and doing their parts as well. And
Yeah.
so that's important when you get into this kind of industry, that you're gonna have to have a team that is secure, that's ride or die,
Mhm.
or that just has your back in terms of what you're trying to put forth, believes in you. And so it
Yeah.
sounds like you were doing work, reading the bill, looking into, what it took, but the people around you saw that, and then they put you on their shoulders, and it came to fruition. Because and then, to let our audience know, it's not that you just put an application out and it's accepted. You have to
Right.
be chosen, and then you have to go through a vetting a
Yep.
situation. So now Maryland, like you said, only 102, or the number that you gave,
Hmm.
a small amount,
Yeah.
and were given licenses and so forth. Do
Hmm.
you know why, or would you say, is there any reason why your application was chosen?
I believe that we were chosen because we did invest in some consultants. So we had some subject matter experts where we were able to, one, not only use their actual knowledge, but use their resumes and their name. We had them as a part of our team on the application. I think that's
Good.
extremely important. Um, that's being able to show that you have relevant experience, especially
Mhm.
in the industry that's brand new, is huge. And we had some of that on our team.
Good.
Also being local prominent members of the area that we were applying in, especially through my mother and Dr. Bryant, I think that adds a lot to it. They also
Got,
do have a lot of community involvement that we could speak to, so it's already like we were stewards of our community.
got it.
Um, and a lot of people don't really realize this, but when you're writing an application, everybody's experience is the entity. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So as we're writing, Mary and Main has collectively had 50 years of healthcare experience, right? I haven't, but
Right. But
my
Dr.
mom,
Bryant, your
Dr.
mom.
Bryant, yeah,
Mhm.
and some of the other subject matter experts that we have. So, yeah, I think that our team was really what it was. Also being local, and having actual connections, especially on the healthcare side. I believe that that's what it was. But now, this is in 2015, though, guys, because nowadays it's more competitive. It's
Yes.
more about money, and a lot of times it's about your community engagement. That part
Mm.
hasn't really changed. Your community engagement is super important. And then on top of it too, we've just gotten, the industry is more sophisticated. There's more information out there. So I mean, like, you really have to hire subject matter experts or consultants that know how to write technically
Mm.
to get your point across in a concise way,
Right.
and in a way that communicates that you understand the rules, that you will be compliant, and on top of it, that you will be successful because these states are licensing companies right now mainly to get the tax revenue, right? So they want to know that you can make as much money as possible. That means you're going to pay the most taxes that you could possibly pay. They don't
Right.
want to hire, they don't want to license a rinky-dink business that's only going to do $1 million a year when they over here looking at businesses doing. I visited a dispensary in Vegas a week ago that did $64 million last year, one location.
Whoa.
Yeah. Granted, it's in
Whoa.
Vegas. It's a huge dispensary, but still 64 million, guys. So that was one
That's
dispensary.
one dispensary. Right.
That's
And that's in a recreational state.
That's in a recreational state with a high, they're doing a lot of different recreational things in Vegas.
Yes, yes, yes. Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
so yes, I mean that's not necessarily a model that would work in a state like Maryland, but still, I mean, just
Right.
seeing that impact, states want to license companies that will be successful on a high level.
Right.
So I know like a lot of people say, well, what about the social equity piece? That's important. I'm like, I want to say to them, how many times have you seen our capitalistic government really care that much about what is socially correct and acceptable? I mean, there's a level of ethics and morals embedded into our system, but
Right.
mainly, I mean, we're a capitalistic society. It's about making money.
It's about making.
So, that's why I work so hard to continue to boost not only my public profile, but really our business so that I can provide more opportunities and help. I can't help anybody if I'm not successful.
That's right.
I can't provide you any opportunities if I don't even have one myself. So, yeah, that's definitely been a focus of mine. I mean, because I want to be able to help other people get in the space somehow. I think it's going to be through branding, partnerships, and opportunities. But yeah, I'm definitely working on what's the best way to give people a real equitable chance. And then on top of it, I tell most people, I'm like, look, you don't even want to run a company. You don't even want to do this. Like,
Mhm.
what you really want to do is X, Y, and Z. When I hear
Talk
about it,
about
'cause
it.
I'm like,
Talk about
run
it.
it,
Talk about
you want to create products, you want to do all these things. You don't have to be the CEO of a multi-state
it.
operator to do that.
Right.
So there's definitely there's levels in this
Mhm.
industry for sure.
Mhm.
And I definitely feel like I'm poised to be like I can run a large scale company. That's definitely like and that's how my brain works. That's where my expertise is. But if I couldn't, I would
Yeah.
not be trying to acquire a bunch of licenses and create different entities. I wouldn't be doing that because you can
That's
do really
important.
well in one store. I just told you about one store that just did $64 million.
Right.
I mean, you got to be smart and strategic.
You have to be. And I love that you even brought that up because the different levels, because for myself, I work at a dispensary. I'm a bud tender, patient advisor. So I'm in the industry at this particular level, and so for me, the highest range of, what some people are getting paid, $20, $25, $13 an hour or something like that. That's a level to get in because you can try from that point to move up to store manager, let's say, if that's what you're looking
Mhm.
to do, and then move up to, something different. But
General, regional managers,
general
general managers.
manager, right? All of those things. But you don't have to own a dispensary in order for this to be where you thrive. It doesn't have to be just that. And I'm
No.
glad you said that. So you got the license. We have you first. You have you researching
Mhm.
bills. No, we need to know what the law says, right? And beautiful. Today we have a new administration. Kamala. She actually was the first person to put up the marijuana. The act
Mhm.
the more
The
act.
more act. Yep.
Yep, right. So, and if you watched the last episode, you would know that we talked about the MORE Act a little bit. It's an opportunity for people who have had uh, convictions and so forth to have those removed for marijuana, to have
Mhm.
those removed from their what is it called? and
To
expunge
their
from their
off their
record,
record.
from
Mhm.
their record, have that removed. That's that act that Kamala put forth. That act would do that on a federal level, which is very important because we are still battling the fact that marijuana is a Schedule One drug, which means Schedule One says that it has no medicinal value. It says that it has a high ability of abuse. And it's it's on Schedule One above things like heroin, which we know is not at all comparable. And like you mentioned, Hope, in the beginning, we know that from 1937 when the Marijuana Tax Act was put forth, and then we were kind of the imagery of marijuana was skewed. It was skewed to make it seem as though Mexican Americans were using this and not being able to control themselves, and Black Americans, Black people, that we couldn't do. We didn't know what we were doing in terms of how we were using it, and it was leading to crack and so forth. It is just a terrible thing that happened to marijuana, but we're in a new day. We're in a new, and I could go on and on about that, but here we are today, and it's important to know the laws and the regulations that are out there. So, Hope, you knew, you looked into those laws, you read that bill, and you said, Maryland, here we come. Then you put your application in, you got your team together. Sounds like you had a good team. You went forward. They accepted you. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Right. And so then it's time to bring product to the dispensary. It's time to sell it. Talk to me about how you got to that point. And
We weren't even there yet.
oh boy. Okay.
I'm about to say, well, there's a whole little period before we even get to that point.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we got licensed. It was December 2016. Mind you, we turned in the application November 2015, and it was supposed to be a 3-month period before they awarded them.
And that sounds like a year or so.
Sounds like a little bit more than a year. Yes,
Yes.
it took that long. I
Wow.
had quit my job. I had moved back to Maryland. And I remember sitting in my mom's basement thinking to myself, what did I do? Like, what am I doing? You know, like, oh my gosh, I have ruined my career in investment banking. If anyone knows about investment banking, it's extremely hard to get an entry level job there. You pretty much have to intern throughout college and then you get a full-time offer. And that's just how it works. So I was like, well, I ruined that. That's over. You know, it was like, what am I going to do? I was like, I guess I got to go back to and go to B school early or something. I was like, but can I even get into B school right now? I mean, I literally was like going through a little
breakdown. I
was going to call it a midlife crisis, but I'm like 22, a 22-year-old crisis. I was like, oh my God, you know, like what is wrong? But we won, right? So after we win, I'm thinking the same thing you're thinking. I'm like, oh, we about to be selling some, you know, but no. Then it was the process of actually securing real estate. So although we had, you know, we had an option on a property and all this stuff, the zoning ordinance, every county in Maryland, the only jurisdiction that different counties had over cannabis was the zoning ordinance. In other states, counties can say yes or no, we don't want cannabis here, or we do. And then in some states, they even leave it up to the counties to like license, essentially. Like you have to get a county license and then you can go get a state license. The county license is really the more competitive process.
Okay.
In some states, like California is like that, Massachusetts is like that. And Mass is even more political in general. You just have to, like, if you get one from the township, then you can go to the state and easily get a state license. So like I said, every cannabis program is drastically different, y'all.
And that's
They're
important.
all different.
The states, y'all, run these programs. Because again, Schedule One, I know I went off on a little tangent, but it's important that Schedule One, the fact that the federal says that it is not of any use and deems it as such a bad thing. We don't get research on cannabis like we should because it's Schedule One. Banks won't bank
Mhm.
with you if you run a business and so forth, because it's Schedule 1, it's federally illegal. And so when you get to what you're interested in terms of, if you are interested in opening a dispensary or going somewhere, just know the state is going to be information by state. So it's
Mhm.
different in Jersey, then it's different in Maryland, it's different in DC, 45 minutes away, but it's different. I'm sorry,
Mhm.
Hope. Mhm.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
So like I said, in Maryland, they didn't give counties or city or townships any jurisdiction around like whether or not they're allowed to be there. But they
Mhm.
did, they of course all the counties had to create zoning ordinance on where these dispensaries could go. So there
Mhm.
was some general guidance that was given out by the state, but every county could come up with whatever they wanted. And there were two counties in particular that it was clear they didn't want cannabis there because the zoning ordinance was almost impossible to comply with. And one of those
Mm.
counties was Prince George's County, where we were located.
Right.
So it wasn't as restrictive as Anne Arundel County, which was the other county, which pretty much their zoning ordinance was no, and you got to get a special use permit.
Mm.
And they just weren't giving them out.
Yeah.
So they gave out a few eventually, but I mean people had to literally fight, and there was like a big public media run about it and all of that stuff, and that was the only reason that they even budged a little bit with a few people in Anne Arundel County. Some of the licenses that never opened, because I don't know if I said it on here or not, but there are 96 dispensary or 91 dispensaries open in Maryland. It's either
Yeah.
91 or 6, but 102 were licensed. And a lot
Yeah.
of those ones that never opened are from Anne Arundel County,
Ah.
or Prince George's County.
Okay.
But yeah, so Prince George's County, we had to do a lot of work with people on the city council and the county council around why these businesses should be allowed. So they would amend the zoning, and they really did not. So we ended up we had a hard time finding a facility that worked in our district, because remember we're also confined to a specific district.
Yeah.
Um, and then another issue is that when you go to people to lease a property, a lot of if they have a bank loan or anything of the sort, a lot of times they cannot lease to you because banks can actually call a mortgage if they are found to be to housing
Dispensing
illegal,
illegal.
yeah,
Yeah.
illegal businesses. And technically on the federal level, I'm a whole drug dealer.
That's right.
So
Hey.
yeah, so that really restricts you a lot. You can't typically lease a property unless it's owned free and clear by the owner, or if the owner has special permission from their bank or wherever their mortgage is held.
Mhm.
Likely they're not getting that, especially if it's a federally chartered bank, which most banks are. So we were, it just took us a while to navigate the real estate situation. And we ended up finding a property that worked. My mom and I both, that little year period of time I was in Georgia for a while, I got my real estate license to sustain myself. And my
Right.
mom has a background in real estate. My grandma has a background in real estate. So I literally grew up talking about this stuff. And I remember one day we were having such a hard time finding a place. I said to my mom, I was like, Mom, let's work backwards. I'm like, I still have access to the registry that tells us pretty much the MLS for commercial properties. I was
Okay.
like, let's find a property that works, and then let's convince. I was like, I could sell water to a whale. I was like, we can convince them to sell. I was
I
like,
hear
we could
that.
do it.
I
So
hear that.
we found the property we're currently in, right? And it
Yep.
wasn't for sale. And it just so happened to be, and I say all the time, like God really has a plan for us because things just fell into place and
Yep.
just worked. And that's
So
how, I mean, trust me, I get roadblocks thrown at me every day, at fires
yeah,
I put out all the time. But God is always still showing me Hope,
I
you're
love
still on
that.
the right path. He still
I love
shows me that, even as, and I really have felt like I've struggled a lot over the past 2 or 3 years trying to expand, but we can talk about that later.
that.
Um,
Well,
yeah, so I mean, I know a lot of people see all the glitz and the gold, but I mean, I've really struggled and made a lot of costly mistakes in the past few years too. Even after we've opened, and all you see is the
prop.
articles and the
Yep.
props, and you see all the lines outside of our store, and I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, but there's still a lot in the background going
That's
on.
right.
But for us, we went to go talk to the property owner, is the older gentleman. He said to me, he goes, you know, people ask me to buy this building all the time, but I think I am ready to sell now. And we were like, okay, and then
Right.
he's like,
After all that
okay.
trial.
It was
Yeah.
easy. It was the easiest thing that we had ever that we had experienced. So we ended up
Wow.
buying a building that was not in the budget, guys. Buying a $1.3 million building definitely wasn't in the budget.
But
Um,
I'm
it happened
sure
though.
in terms of buying it, so to not have to keep, renewing this lease and
Mhm.
saying why you deserve to be there and product. So yeah, buying it.
Yeah, we have that security now. So we ended up buying a building.
Wow.
After we bought the building, we had about $150,000 left for a build out. We had to gut that building
Wow.
and go from there. So I mean, like this was the leanest build out I ever seen in my life. I mean, we made it work. We made it work. Luckily, Dexter, our store manager, is his in his past life he was a commercial interior designer. He actually
Okay.
worked for a huge interior design firm that did all of the interior design and a little bit of architecture for a lot of the apartment buildings in DC
Mm-hmm.
and office spaces in DC. So, he was able to really help us to make a really, really beautiful space on a shoestring budget.
Wow.
And we were able to do that. And when we opened, I mean, I think we had like $50,000 left for inventory, which is not a lot for those
Right.
people who like really understand cannabis and stuff. That's nothing. Um, and like me, my mom, Dexter,
Mm-hmm.
Wesley, who is Dr. Bryant's cousin,
Mm-hmm.
we worked in the store for about 6 months. I like you probably if you came to Mary Main early, I probably
You were
was
there.
was was there. Yeah,
Right.
Funny
Right.
now people are always asking like, when are you going to be in the store? I'm like, mm-hmm.
Now I've
I'm like,
graduated.
if I have a meeting, yeah, I'm like, if I have a
Right.
meeting and when I am in the store, I'm in my office in the back and you won't see me.
Right.
Yeah, I've graduated from that, but yeah, I definitely we rolled up our hands. We did what we had to do in the beginning, but it ended up taking. We didn't open the store until September 2018. The build
Mhm.
out,
Wow.
we
And that's
acquired the
like
building.
2000, and you said because the bill was 2014. That's all the way back when you started researching,
Yep,
application, all of that. And
yep.
then you can open till 2018.
September
Wow.
of 2018. hmm I'm trying to think of. We bought the building. I want to say it was like July 2017.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then the build out, we're going through all of that. And we probably finished the build out by April or so of
Okay.
2018, and then just going through the final licensing process. So how it worked in Maryland is you had a stage one approval, which was the competitive part, and stage two is you just have to go through like an inspection, and then you got to get voted in by the board and all these
Oh,
things.
sure.
But there's a lot of bureaucracy involved with that. Like there's a lot
Sure.
of like, okay, you got to tell the commission a month before your inspection, and then they schedule it. It might be another month after that. Then your inspection, if one little thing goes wrong, you got to reschedule, and it might take another month. And then after you inspect, you got to go through certain modules online before you can order product. And if
Wow.
you don't, just a lot of little things where it
Yes.
took months, where we thought, oh, we're done in April, we're going to be able to open up in May.
That's
No, we
right.
didn't open up until September.
Wow.
Mind
Wow.
you, all of this time, guess who wasn't making a dollar? Me.
Wow. All that.
But luckily, like I said, I was in the
You
space
had other
where like,
streams. Yeah.
no, not really other streams, not really at that time. I mean, my mom was sustaining me. I was living with my mom and
Thank God
having
for a mommy.
thank God. But for me, that was mentally draining for me. I mean, I had moved
Sure.
out when I was 17, and had been super independent. Even in college, I had like 3 jobs and like,
Sure. Yeah.
and then I came out of school with an extremely high paying job for someone that age. And, like
Right.
that's where I was. And I mean, I was
Yep.
living good in Atlanta. Then I came back home and I'm in my mom's basement, not making a dollar,
Right.
but with a dream.
And mind you,
Um,
and you saw on the front end what the industry was what it was poised rather to
yeah.
make. And you're not even seeing that Not yet. Not yet.
None of it.
Okay.
And,
Wow.
on that note, I do want to say, because look, these businesses do make a lot of money, right? But
Mhm.
what comes home in your pocket as the owner, it's not quite what you think, okay? Because the expenses are out of this world. There's kind of a green tax that I like to say on everything that we do, because people know that there are difficulties. You can't get a mortgage, right? So if there is someone that will lend money to you, it's not going to be at typical rates. It's going to be like at 12%. I
Right.
mean, and that's crazy. You know what I mean? It's going to be crazy. It'll be like credit cards.
Yeah.
You might get a revolving loan, or some type of line of credit, and it might be a 30% rate.
Right.
Things that are just impossible to deal with. Yeah, there's just a lot of, even dealing with a lawyer, because of
Right.
the specialized uh, expertise they have to have. I mean, they can charge you 2 times what they would normally charge somebody.
Right. Because
Everything, tax account,
it's a whole
a whole
industry.
different thing. Yeah. So
Mhm.
everything is more expensive. And then those tax implications that I was talking about, 280E, where we cannot write off typical business expenses, the more money you make, the more
The,
you pay in
the more you
taxes.
pay in taxes.
And
Right.
you really have to keep your business as lean as possible. So I hear, I hear a lot of patients talk about things that, a lot of times dispensaries can't even change. But when I think about it, I'm like, they have no idea, nor do they care. And I get that. I wouldn't care on that side either, because it's not their problem. It's our problem,
Right.
to figure out. But, they don't care that it's like, look, they want to be able to treat cannabis like they do every other business. They want to be able to go online, order
Yep.
a product, and it be delivered to their door in 30 minutes. They
That's
want to be able to pay with their credit cards, and we can't accept credit cards because
credit cards. Right.
credit processors don't work with us. I mean,
That's right.
there's just so many little moving parts
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
you have to deal with. And a lot of times you're taxed at a higher rate. Every business service is going to cost at a premium.
Right.
Even for us to have our bank account, I looked at it the other day. We paid $30,000 in fees last year, just for fees, just to have an
Right.
account, just to own it.
That's right.
Um,
Right. Mhm.
just to
Yeah.
be able to deposit my money, we paid that. Not to
Mhm.
mention, we've gotten different financing opportunities, and it's extremely high.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd
Yeah.
say that as much top line revenue numbers look amazing.
Yes.
Um, but no, it is not. It is not. You're not about to get rich quick.
Right.
It's more of a game. Get your foot in the door. Survive until federal legalization, when we become like a regular business, and we can benefit off of regular business opportunities.
Right. And that's important, even in what we're, today with the new administration, again, going back to the MORE Act and so forth. We need people to advocate for, it to not be federally for Schedule One. We
Hmm.
need for this to be, the prohibition of cannabis to be ended, and for it to not be on the schedule list, and for us to be able to use it as medicinal, as recreational, all of those things. I mean, it's an important thing, not just, and for people who look like us as well, in terms of
Hmm.
expungements and records, and it's something we need to pay attention to, because
Agreed.
it affects across the line, and the money, the revenue that can be made is there, but it's capped when you have this federal stigma on it, or not even stigma, but this federal regulation,
Hmm.
the way it goes. So, all right, so we have the fact that you have your dispensary now, right? We've moved.
Hmm.
We got you. You're in the dispensary. Mary Main is in Prince George's County. Is it Capitol Heights?
Capitol Heights. Yep.
Capitol Heights, Prince George's County. Very fine location. I've been there.
Yeah.
Very nice discount as your first time, if you're a first timer, which is
Yeah.
always nice to get a special treatment when you come to some place for the first time. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that about Mary Main, that you do that.
Thank you.
So now you are in the business, you have product. Talk to me about what you love about it. What is the interactions with clients? What is it that you're gaining from it on this side now?
Yeah. It is really amazing to see people who were coming in back when I was in the store every single day.
Yeah.
And they were dealing with specific ailments. And then now, like, there's one patient that I'm thinking of in particular that used to use a cane and like doesn't use a cane anymore, and
Yeah.
attributes it to some of the cannabis products that we've been able to recommend and help coach
Yeah.
them through. So, Paulette, I know you do a lot of this like actual consulting about how cannabis works with your other medicines and how it can really work to alleviate real symptoms. Because not that I don't think that this is a bad thing, because people use cannabis for different reasons, but a lot of bud tenders typically, or sales associates typically, don't focus on true medicinal benefits, you know? And we're in a medical market right now. So I'd say at least 60% of the people who come in the store really are trying to treat specific ailments for a specific reason. And there's kind of a coaching process. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't always get it right with the first product that you recommend to them. There's so much more research that needs to be done around cannabis. So until we can get to that point where it's like, okay, I know if I prescribe you or recommend you
Yes.
this, not prescribe,
Right.
if I recommend this to you, I know that's going to help you because we have this research that says so. We're
Right.
far away from that. We're
Right.
probably like 20 years from that, to be honest, y'all.
Right. And
So way behind.
there's so many years that we've missed, you
Yeah.
know, and there's so much product out there now that is helping people that we can't say I proof positive, you know. Now, because I'm at the dispensary every Thursday and I'm selling to folks, I can see them every Thursday and they come back and say to me, well, this worked or that worked, but it's not the research rich that we need to be able to, you know, say that this will help you overall, you know, for
Right.
Crohn, something. I can really only be specific to that person because of the way that, you know, the way that it is, the way that it's available. So you have people coming into Mary Main and people love it. So how do you like being a dispensary owner
Yeah.
right now? How is it for you?
I mean, I love it. I love what I do. I feel affirmed every day that I'm doing the right thing and I'm on my God-given purpose path, which is
Good.
important for me. I don't want to do anything that doesn't feel right anymore. Now that I know what this feels like, I don't want to do anything that doesn't feel right. So I'm big on that, and I feel so great every day. I know I'm helping people, and you know, I've kind of transitioned away from just thinking of myself as just a dispensary owner. You know, I own a parent company that is pursuing a lot of different
Love
areas
it.
in this industry.
Love it.
Um, yeah, so you know, like I said, I'm in California right now. I'm
Yeah.
fielding some opportunities out here on the West Coast, and we're looking at how we can expand on the East Coast more within our home state as well as in others. So, you know, I do a lot of consulting. I've kind of become one of those subject matter experts that people put on their applications and
Yeah.
work through things with.
Mhm.
And you know, I find a lot of fulfillment in that. And I really want to work towards, you know, I have a passion for helping to create wealth in the Black community specifically.
Yes.
So I really want to transition into like only benefiting
Yeah.
those people. I'm not afraid to say that. We pretty much only employ um, minorities at my store,
Talk
period.
about it. Talk about it.
And I'm okay. Like I'll say it, you know what I
It's
mean?
important.
We only do it. That's all we do.
It's important.
Because we need that representation. We also have a really great representation of the LGBTQ community at my store as well, and we're
Beautiful.
extremely inclusive in that way. And that's important to me too, because some of the people that I love the most in this world are a part of that community. Um,
Beautiful.
yeah, so
Beautiful.
I'm really all about inclusion when it comes to those two demographics, minorities, specifically Black people, as
Yeah.
well as the LGBTQ community.
Mhm.
And I really want to focus my efforts on helping people get into the industry in whatever way best suits them. As well as I want to create some Black wealth out of this industry. It can happen.
It can happen.
It's already a multi-billion-dollar industry. We're going to be heading towards the trillion range in the next couple years. You know,
Right.
I'm like, there need to be at least 100 Black millionaires made out of cannabis,
Out of cannabis. And
not just out of cannabis.
here's the thing, you know, again, we talk about, you don't have to be a dispensary owner. That does not have to be where you come in. You can come in as a patient advisor, bud tender. You can come in as a store manager, someone who is well versed in being customer service. So you're able to come in store manager. You can come in as someone who develops an app. There's only like, and I know I'm going to only speak of two, but there's only two main apps that people use for finding their cannabis: Weed Maps and Leafly. And I know that there's one, somebody created by a Black person. I don't know it yet. That's a problem. Because I'm in the industry and I want to know what it is. So if you could have the idea, that the industry needs, how do we find Black owned dispensaries? I would love an app to give me that. So if that's you out there, you can come in at different levels and it could be beneficial to you. I'm also a student. You can come in as a student, just somebody just trying to understand the plant so that you can help people heal themselves. So there's these other, I know that people see the dispensary owner or think about owning a dispensary and think, oh yeah, that's the moneymaker. Like, no, it's other avenues, it's other ways. And so, like you said, building upon that, is important. What would you say, we're coming to a close? I was going to ask if anybody had any questions. So throw them up there if you have any, because we're coming to an end. But I wanted to ask Hope, what would you tell the person who's trying to get into the industry, who doesn't have that 150K to do the consulting and getting the license? And, what would you say to someone who's just trying to get into the industry?
Okay, so there's two paths you can take in that scenario. And I'll say the one that I would recommend is there are so many different opportunities on the ancillary side. So ancillary meaning not touching the plant. So not a dispensary owner, cultivator, processor, lab testing, manufacturing, delivery. All of those things are on the plant touching side. On the non-plant touching side, there are so many different business services that we need and use. We just talked about a little bit about tech. You get into packaging, branding, marketing, consulting on patient advising like Paulette does. You could create, I know there are some companies that have done really well creating provider networks and marketing for providers and taking a fee from these provider networks. Some of them are in multiple states and they build literally multi-million-dollar companies just doing that, creating this provider network. There's just so many different ways. And the cool thing is this industry is still small. It's still, we're only like, if the industry was a baby, we're only like 2 years old. We're still a baby.
That's right.
So you still have time to create innovative ideas. And also, the other cool thing about cannabis is you really don't have to be that innovative. You can take a concept that already works in another industry and implement it over here.
That's right.
Yeah, you really don't have to be that innovative in cannabis. Because it's brand new. So everything is either lacking or there's not that many competitors. Like you said, there's only two real, apps like that. Think about how many apps we have for everything else.
Right.
Think about how many bread companies are in the bread aisle. Like, there's room for you. Like, whatever your idea is and whatever your current skill set is, whatever you do in your current life, you can likely transfer those skills right over to cannabis. And oftentimes, I actually have had a course on this that I was selling. And I think if you go, it might not be in the link in my bio right now, but I can go back and change it if anyone's interested in this type of a course. But it was about being able to take your current skill set and transfer it in the cannabis industry so that you could charge a premium for your services. Like I said, there are not many people with true expertise in this space, because one thing that I know is I can't stand somebody trying to charge me 5 times what they really are due, and then they don't really even know what they're talking about. That bothers me. If I have to tell you about a regulation, you're immediately not valuable to me, because I could have hired a regular person that's going to charge me a regular rate and I could have taught them what they needed to know.
That's right.
So I'm like, you gotta own that value if you're going to charge that money. But that's the first thing I'd say. And the second thing I'd say is the industry has evolved since 2014. There's a lot of advocates like myself that really fight for equitable laws when it comes to these licensing processes
Yeah.
and these application processes. So the application processes have become a little bit cheaper. There are more people in the industry that are sharing more information. So it's not, you don't have to pay for as much access as we had to pay for back then. We had to travel and go talk to people and do
Yeah.
this and do that. You just don't have to pay for as much access because there are people like me that put out our whole life story online, and you can kind of
Yeah.
read and get smarter. So the application process is much more affordable. It's still not cheap, but
No.
it's much
Not
more
true.
affordable, especially in like the pre-license stage where you're really just trying to educate yourself and all that. It's much more affordable, and there are people out there that can help. So I'm not saying like don't touch the plant touching side, but for real, honestly, if you don't feel like you could have ran a multi-million-dollar company, you have to be honest with yourself, then you can't run a cannabis business. I don't care if you used to bag up weed for your cousin and sell it here, or you
Yeah.
got some pounds in the mail and you used to move that stuff. You can't run one of these businesses if you cannot run a sophisticated business that makes millions of dollars every year, period.
That's right.
Like, like I really don't care what your background is and if you grow the finest weed, and none of
Yeah.
that. Like, this is a real business. That part of it is just one side. And honestly, I could go hire you to go do that.
Right.
Can you
Right.
beat me? Can you beat me? And you have to really take that inventory for yourself. Like, can you wear 10 different hats that include accountant, investor relations,
Mm-hmm.
human resources,
Mm-hmm.
business development, operations officer? Can you wear all those hats?
Right.
So
Right. Can you, and the thing about it is you can be one of those hats and
yeah.
and live a fine life and be very happy with your input into the industry.
Yes.
You don't have to take on the full scope of things. You can come in and nail it at your level, and then do what you
And
should,
then you can grow from there if that's
go
where
from
you
there.
aspire to
Exactly.
do. But like, I really challenge everybody to like figure out what that means to walk in their purpose and like figure out what that feels like. Because like I'm telling you guys, I didn't even really know what it felt like until I started this business. I had glimpses of it throughout my life, just little times where I'm like, yeah, I remember feeling this happy. Like,
Yeah.
when I used to do pageants and stuff when I was younger, I'm like, I used to really feel happy like this,
Yeah.
like I do now back then. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that means I was doing what I was supposed to do.
That's right.
And, once you figure out what that feeling feels like, you have to chase that. And you
Yeah.
can't worry about like what society thinks is right or wrong, or what your own mind sometimes will tell you. No, you have to be the biggest boss in America. You can't just
Right.
be work for somebody and find fulfillment there. Like, look,
And you
guys, all the time I trust. Sometimes I think to myself, I'm like, damn, Hope you didn't want to just go work at a bank somewhere and just
right.
like,
Like
this is too much,
you had to
or
take
like
it
be a
all
housewife
in.
even. I'm
You
like,
had to take it
Mom,
all
why
in.
did right? I look at my mom. I'm like, why you didn't teach me how to cook? Like, I could have been married to somebody by now. Goodness.
Right. Right.
I could have been chilling, like, but
Right.
it's funny too, because you end up finding partners that work with you. Because my boyfriend now, I mean, he's like, I would not have wanted you if all you wanted to do was cook and clean. He was
There
like,
you
part of the
go.
reason that I like you is because
Because
you're so ambitious.
you're thinking and you're always out. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. Before we go, because we actually do have a couple questions coming in, and
No
I want to
problem.
get this one in. What is the biggest fixed cost in running the business?
Salaries,
Salary.
1,000%.
Because it can't be
Salaries.
taxed. It can't be taxed.
Yeah, can't be taxed. So it would probably, I mean, I'd say it was our biggest fixed cost anyway, especially really probably for any, yeah, I'd say for any cannabis business, it's probably salaries. In cultivating and processing facilities, it might be like the equipment upfront.
Right.
Yeah,
And,
so I'd say either salaries and or equipment.
and what's important about salaries, for people that are, listening and thinking about, how they could go about benefiting from this industry, because of the federal stance of it, the
Mhm.
salaries can't be written off. And in a normal business, you can write off salaries. So that's like revenue coming in off the back of a person working for you. But in this industry, you cannot, not yet, not
Not
yet.
yet. Mhm.
You cannot write off the salary, so you don't have that as a something to offset your taxes. So that is important. And I wanted to get that question out there because, people think like bud tenders and patients, they're thinking to themselves, oh yeah, that money is hand over foot.
They making.
But if I can't even write you off, so you are costing me money to sell my product. So that is very important.
We've ran the numbers and everything, and I tell them, I'm like, look, for every dollar we make, we keep about 15 cents.
There it is.
That's it. The rest is gone out the door the second we make it.
That's right. And as we're coming to a close, I want to just, first of all, I want to thank you for joining me, joining this audience. I want to thank you for giving us all this information, a wealth of knowledge. We could talk on and on because I want to know more about how, more stuff works, but we will have you back on another time. But for now, I'm so grateful for you. Hope, tell me and tell the audience how they could help you, because you are the one who has the business, right? You're the one who's in the industry. You made it for us. Like, sis, go. How can we support you?
Yeah, so you can definitely, if you're in Maryland, come shop with us. We're located off of Central Avenue in Hampton Mall Drive. Check us out at maryandmain.com for more information, and that's all of our social media handles as well, at Mary and Main. If you are a Maryland resident and you don't know how to get your patient card, talk to Paulette. She can help you with that. Also, you can call our store and we can help you as well. And if you're not a patient in Maryland, follow me on Instagram at I am Hope So Dope. And funny story, people have been calling me that since like middle school. So I didn't make that up.
Okay.
But yeah, I am Hope So Dope. And I share a lot of free information there about, just what's going on in general in the industry. I also offer courses and free master classes and all types of things all the time. And you'll be able to check out all the cool stuff I'm working on. I'm hoping to be able to roll out some of my new projects and things that I've been working on this year, things I've been working on for years, literally. So I'm super excited. Like I said before, I'm not just a dispensary owner. I have, we are really building a sustainable portfolio of brands and companies that will make impact, good businesses that work together in the cannabis space. So yeah, I really hope to be able to roll out some of that for you guys over the coming months. So definitely follow me at I am Hope So Dope and support my businesses.
Perfect. I love that. And as a person who works in a dispensary, I'm seeing products, and I know that we Black people, Black women in particular, we need products. And I'm just rooting for you, for your products to be out there, for us to be buying things that have Mary and Main on it, to be Hope Wiseman for your team. That's what I want to be selling and I want to be using. So we're going to support you all the way. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Make sure to keep your contact information at the ready for everyone, but we really appreciate you coming on tonight.
I appreciate you for having me. This was extremely, this is going to be one that I'm going to send people to when they ask me, like, how'd you start? And all this stuff. I'm like, go watch this. So,
that's right. That's exactly perfect. All right.
Yeah. Thanks to Tori and Trina. I see your thing. So thank you guys too.
Yep. Thanks, Tori. Thanks, Trina. Thanks for joining us. Maybe, a couple of my clients are interested in going to Mary and Main. I've got some texts already. So we'll be having some people let them know that they came from Bud Talk.
Yes. Please mention that, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks, Hope. All right.
All right.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining me tonight on Bud Talk with Paulette Simone. I am so glad that I was able to bring Hope Wiseman to you, bring to you some information about the business of Bud, how you can get into the industry. And if you heard her, she said it wasn't just overnight. It takes some time. She also mentioned that it's not just about being a dispensary owner. There's also opportunities at other levels where you don't touch the plant. Marketing. I know that there's delivery services. There's what else is there? There's drivers that people are needed, caregivers. There's so many other areas that we can get into the industry. And I just hope that you're able to see that somebody like you, like me, has done it, and we can do it too. I look forward to speaking to you soon. I'll bring Bud Talk back to you probably next month. We'll have another great topic. I look forward to it. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.